Now, over the past few months, we've been talking about the new features and everything that is included within Dragon Age the Veilguard, but we haven't talked about anything that has been removed outside of fun, playability, and common sense, but something that you need not expect or need not be worried about with Veilguard when it does come out on Halloween. Okay, so you drop the game on the spooky day, and you don't want to include spiders because you think that spooks people. When I was watching, and when I've watched through multiple different playthroughs of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, trust me, this loops back in. During the Cave of the Geese section, in the original game, okay, they had the big daddy long legs enemies, and, well, I've watched Maximilian Dudes play through the game 2 or 3 times at this point. In totality, that's the way I watch everything. I don't care how many parts it is, I'll just watch through the entire thing, and then if I want to watch it again, I'll cycle through. So yeah, something that he pointed out is, I wouldn't be surprised if the spider enemies in the Cave of the Geese ended up getting removed because of there are serious concerns from developers out there, okay? This is his words, not mine. There are serious concerns of developers that are out there that they don't want to exacerbate anybody's arachnophobia. Then it's hilarious, like the first enemy that you interact with are those same daddy long legs characters. I think they're stingers, and yeah, they're crazy looking. They got the big old long legs. They very much look like spiders. Didn't downplay it at all, but in order to try to save face, he's like, well, it looks like they kind of toned it down a little bit. And it's like, I understand you live in California, but don't get too Californian about it. Understand that there is a big wide world around here where a lot of people don't care about that stuff. You're going into a big spooky cave, and big spooky spiders isn't at all out of the realm of possibility. And of course, you've had a history of big spooky creatures in the Dragon Age franchise, but this time around, you don't want spiders because probably those same reasons. It's very silly, but instead of sheer speculation that potentially because, some inside information that, people don't really want to go with spiders in development anymore, which, yeah, Max, and he worked on the Killer Instinct reboot, and they had, what's her name, that character, Sadira? Knowing that, yeah, you had to be really careful about some of the spider designs, but still, ultimately, she's a spider lady. And like how Shadow of War, or the Lord of the Rings game, it made Sheila, but the sexy spider lady. So but anyways, this is just another example of Dragon Age Veilguard just taking the wokest option possible and sending up more red flags that this thing is gonna suck. Community manager for Bioware revealed the upcoming Dragon Age Veilguard will not feature any spider enemies. Why? Blog post for Dragon Age Veilguard's accessibility options. Here we go again. I got to talk about these accessibility options at one point in time before the game comes out, or even after the game comes out, because I would imagine there's probably a whole host of other accessibility options that are out there that basically makes the game an interactive movie. Basically, games journalism mode. Because when the reviews start to come out and people start to talk everything about how great the character design is and talk very little about the gameplay, you're going to know that they put on all of those accessibility options that makes the game practically play itself. Anyways, we shared the official Dragon Age subreddit. Oh, of course, wow. Woke Game goes to Reddit to tell you how woke it is. More news at 11. And one user shared his desire for an arachnophobia filter. Oh my god. Zzz wrote, no mention of arachnophobia filter. No, I'm not an arachnophobe. Holy shit. I'm trying to virtue signal for other people that could theoretically be afraid of spiders, and nobody has brought that feature up. Wow. I just wish there was one like in a WoW that changes every spider in the game to crabs. LMAO. I want to fight giant enemy crabs. Holy shit. An ancient meme posted on Reddit trying to virtue signal. I'm dying inside. Another added, I'm an arachnophobe, but I've found that playing games with spiders over the years have helped desensitize. Yeah, it's called exposure therapy. It's the only kind of therapy that helps people get over their fears. You don't hide people away. You don't bubble wrap the world. You slowly expose them to this stuff. And this is, and my initial fear of them somewhat, I still really hate when they drop from the ceiling onto my face. I mean, I'm not an arachnophobe, and yeah, I hate that too, so that's fair. If I can see a spider enemy a few feet away, it's easier for me to prepare myself to fight them. Hopefully the spiders here will still be more stylized and not look like Dragon Age Inquisition's version I hated the monstrous variant. Well, yeah, exactly. There's some body horror characters that I'm not necessarily fond of in games that I play. The fact of the matter is, if it's cool, it's cool. If it fits within the stylized version of the world that the developers are making, I'm down for it. But no. Still another added same. I'm more or less fine now if they have big bodies, but anything with the legs too long, I'm afraid I'll involuntarily throw my controller at the screen. Stupid lizard brain. No, you're a Redditor. Don't have to chalk that up to, generations old biological programming. In response to the comments, Associate Community Manager for Bioware and presumably Dragon Age: The Veilguard's Violet responded, "No arachnophobia mode because there's no spiders." Oh, great. Spiders were a consistent enemy in the franchise and were regularly confounding players as they explored the various locations available to them throughout Thedas. It's unclear why Bioware chose to remove the spiders from the game, and Violet did not provide an explanation as to why. Well, I mean, we could just go ahead and theorize. Okay, this is a game that includes top surgery scars but doesn't want to include spiders. You can max out your glute and breast slider and create something that looks akin to a 12-year-old chunky boy. You have gameplay and UI that looks like it's straight out of Chinese shovelware ripoffs. And you look at the people who are making the game, including lead designer, transgender trans wizard, gendermancer Corrine Bush, and you know exactly who they're trying to appeal to, the modern audience, and why this could end up being the biggest bomb of 2024. And yes, I know that we're in the year of Concord, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Oh, should space out the gendermancer and Suicide Squad in the same sentence a little bit more. Star Wars Outlaws and the rest, but Dragon Age the Veilguard has been in development longer, has EA money, and this does not look promising at all, and they more than likely have high hopes for this, but it's so damn easy. It'd be so easy to make a hit because you got a former Dragon Age director, Mark Darrah, explains how Sony and Firewalk Studios could have blown $400 million on Concord. And yeah, just simply extrapolate this out to any of the other previous games that have bombed this year, because this guy knows what he's talking about. There's a reason that he's a former director and not a current director. So Mark Darrah recently explained why he believes it is very possible that Sony and Firewalk Studios could have blown $400 million developing Concord. Darrah's comments come in the wake of a rumor from Colin Moriarty, who claimed that, according to a Concord insider, that the game cost $400 million to make. Moriarty went on to reveal that Probably Monsters, the original owner of Firewalk Studios, pumped in $200, and then Sony came in and was like, no, we really love this weird shit, so let's throw another $200 million in the pot because my sunk cost fallacy is very real. Darrah reacted to this rumor and shared his analysis in a recent YouTube upload where he said, "If we start from pure development perspective, we don't include any externalities, then the easiest way to look at this from a pure staff month perspective, we could have spent $400 million just on staff." That's a perfect way to do the math because obviously you have other external factors, but it's a pretty good indicator. Okay, so if we can get even close to that, at least possible, the Concord did in fact cost $400 million. Well, yeah, exactly. 8 years in development. From there, Darrah explained how he broke up the game's development beginning in 2018 when Firewalk Studios was founded and going up until April 30th, 2023 when it entered alpha. He noted that the game spent 63 months in pre-alpha. Jesus, 15 months from alpha until launch. Next, Darrah assumed that Firewalk spent $15,000 per month on staff, including all of the supplies and computers, office space. Additionally, it would include any central resources that aren't factored into the team, so HR. Yeah, and all of the bloat from those different consultancy firms that are there. So yeah, $15,000? Not exactly a wild overestimation. Hell, we know that there were a fair few people working at this place, and you think Bioware is going to be any different? Even speculated that $15,000 for a fully loaded staff month might actually be low. Well, yeah, because you're talking about a full month of wages, and game developers, well, yeah, aren't exactly making bank, but they aren't exactly struggling either, and especially at a first-party Sony studio like that, a very prominent studio, even prior to its acquisition, you're probably talking $2,000-$3,000 a month. Like, I think that he's drastically lowballing this. There, Darrah explained that in order to get Moriarty's $200 million before alpha, and then the $200 million after alpha, Firewalk would need to average a team size of 212 employees pre-alpha, and then scale it up to 900 after alpha. It's possible if we do it purely through staffing with just a fairly simple ramp. Yeah, exactly. Even the fact that, it was in development, slow rolling for 7 7+ years, and then an alpha for just about a year and a half. Like, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Next, he decided to change up the cost of the estimates that Probably Monsters spent around $25 million between 2016 and 2018 before creating Firewalk Studios. Given a developer statements that the game was in development for 8 years, Darrah also added $6 million, which he described as sunk costs, which explained it could be Sony or Firewalk hiding costs from other projects that employees might be working on that do not necessarily have anything to do with Concord, but are placed in Concord because the game is seen as too big to fail. Yeah, potentially. He also applied an estimated $100 million acquisition by Firewalk Studios by Sony into the $400 million, despite Moriarty making it clear that the $400 million was the game's development outside of Sony's acquisition of Firewalk. Nevertheless, these new numbers also lowered the pre-average alpha team size to 130, and the average team after alpha would be 650. He also noted the super duper within the realm of possibility. Well, yeah, exactly. And even if you are lowballing the numbers, which seems very probable, as he would be far more in the know in regards to how big, a general team size on a project of this scope and scale would be, I'd imagine he's probably being as conservative as possible. Interestingly, Darrah noted before he started crunching numbers, he thought the rumor was not even remotely possible that Concord cost $400 million. However, he noted, but when I sat down and did the math, especially once you start applying in a few externalities for cost, yeah, it actually does start to look like the numbers make a lot of sense, even though it could go higher with costs such as increased staff salaries, building costs, or others. Exactly. And yeah, all you need to do is just run those numbers for another game that has been in development, as we've heard from staff as well, in the form of Dragon Age the Veilguard. It has been in development for the better part, actually a little bit over a decade. And well, when this thing ultimately bombs, I don't think there's going to be refunds, and I don't think a server is going to be shut down in under 2 weeks, but I would imagine, because we've seen, what was it? Spider-Man 2? Sony Spider-Man 2 ended up costing $365 million. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was another $400 million sunk. Meanwhile, successful games this year. What was the budget on Pal World? Couple $1 million. Black Myth Wukong? $7 million? Interesting what happens when you just have a bunch of passionate people working on a project. You end up with a good game. When you end up bringing in everybody under the yellow sun with a grievance degree, looking for a handout and a project to ruin and for the sake of a modern audience, you end up with a Concord, you end up with a Dragon Age Veilguard, and ultimately, you end up with a lot of ones and zeros thrown into the ether at the altar of the modern audience. Big surprise. Especially when you consider running the numbers is so goddamn easy, you could easily find out nobody wants the shit that you're pushing. They just want good games. 95% of players don't consider inclusivity important to gaming. Yeah, I could have told you that, and it wouldn't have cost you $400 million. It's $398 million. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.